I will be recording the session today. I do want to highlight the risk disclaimer and hypothetical performance disclosure. It is to protect me and you. And basically, you should never trade with money you cannot afford to lose. Now, we will start with Forex this morning, and then we will move over to the futures. I will be using multi-charts and NinjaTrader this morning. So take just a moment, read over the disclaimer. I will be switching screens. So good morning, Charles. How are you doing this morning? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show my other screen, and you can see that it is multi-charts. I have to get my other screens up. And I'm going to show you the scanner. You can see I have the Aussie dollar, the euro yen, British pound dollar, the US CAD, the US Swiss franc, and the USD JPY. Now, one thing to note is the USD Swiss franc is a very, very slow moving currency typically. It trends really well, but it does move slower. So if you're using the binary options on the USD Swiss franc, you do want to make sure that you buy time on any of those setups. Okay? The US CAD also very slow moving until the US session opens. And of course, when the US session opens, then, it will speed up. Now, you can also see that I have the first column there is the stochastics, and you can see that the euro dollar is actually overextended to the downside on the 15-minute chart. And that's the purpose of this column, is to actually show you when a market is overbought or oversold. In this case, I would wait for a retracement back up to this ATR before I would even think about entering. And you can see very clearly that it is overextended to the downside. Now, the common mistake that most people make is they think if the market's oversold or overbought, that means it's going to reverse. No, actually, it just means it's going to test for an area of support or resistance. In other words, you're just going to get a retracement. Now, will that retracement change the market? We don't know, okay? That's what we have to wait and see. You do see that buyers are coming in on this bar. Again, that just tells me we're probably going to form what we call a magenta peak here, and it will look very similar to this. It has a little V top like a mountaintop, and then that would confirm we're going to retrace back to the ATR. You can also see that we can measure whether price is making a pivot high or a pivot low. Now, what does that mean? Well, a pivot low means the next price bar should go up. A pivot high means that the next price bar should go down. So it's very indicative of what the next price bar will do. We then have a column for the ADX. Anytime the ADX is above 70, like it is right now on the Aussie dollar 60-minute chart, that means that more than likely you're going to get a retracement. Okay. Good morning, Rick. We also have the ADX peak column, and that tells me anytime we have a magenta peak. Now, that's important because when we have a magenta peak, just like we had here, we're expecting price to come back down to this ATR. Okay. We then have the trend ATR, and that gives us the previous bar trend, the current bar trend. How many ticks is it to the ATR? If the market is in congestion, like for example, the USD Swiss franc is in congestion on the 15-minute chart, that means that we're getting these congestion dots with an ATR. In other words, this has just flipped the ATR, but it should come back and test the ATR, and it's going to test it to make sure that area actually supports price. Okay? If it doesn't, it will continue down. We then have the price at the congestion dot. And again, this is where it's highlighting you are near a congestion dot, okay? And there are occasions where I take trades based on this congestion dot. Then we have price at the ATR. All of my trades will come in at an ATR because that is your lowest point of risk. So you can see right now the Aussie dollar is at an ATR. Okay, and that simply means it's close enough right now to this ATR to take a trade because I have this set to 10 ticks. So if it's within 10 ticks of that ATR, it's going to let me know in this column. Same thing on the USD CAD. You can see that now it's getting close to the ATR and it's being highlighted in the scanner. This just allows us to monitor multiple time frames in multiple instruments. Does everybody understand that? Any questions on the scanner window? Now, the blue and red dots that you see, it's extending to the right. This just tells me where the opening range was for the London session, okay? So it kind of guides me into, right now, I would probably only want to take shorts on the US CAD, okay? It's below the low of the opening range, and it's coming back to this ATR. The one thing I would want to do is monitor as it comes back to this ATR. Do buyers increase or do they decrease? Okay. In fact, let me change it over because there's an example of it right now on the NASDAQ. Let me see. Okay, does everybody see my NASDAQ screen? So in this case, we've had a retracement back to this ATR. You see we get a line of blue dots. Do you see how the volume decreased on the seller side here? In order to break this ATR, you're going to have a lot of sellers coming into the market. You're not seeing that right now. They're still testing for buyers right here. Okay? Do y'all see that? That just tells me this is not the best time in the world to take a short on the 3-minute NASDAQ chart. Now that can change. A lot can change with the next bar. Okay? All right. Now let's go back to this one. So right now we have a potential that may come in on the US CAD. Those binaries are not available until 8 o'clock in the morning. And I would want to see down here, I would not want the buyers controlling that bar. I would like to see it touch the ATR with sellers stepping in and taking control of that bar. Then, yeah, I might be interested. Okay. So let's go see what the USD JPY is doing. The USD JPY is at the ATR. You can see that here. It's trying to break it because the ATR is flipping from blue to red. You're also at the ATR over here. And actually, that's a great example of diverging volume as well. Let's see. Do you see how this came back and it tested that high? But look at the volume on it, okay? The volume was decreasing. That's indicative that the price should go down, okay? Now that would have been off of a 60-minute chart, which to me would be an 11 o'clock binary, okay? And that's 11 o'clock is a daily binary, for those of you that do not know. And the first thing that I do is go out and look to see how much it would be for 11 o'clock binary. And we're going to have to be changing screens a lot this morning. So the first thing I'm looking at is 111. Okay, now you can get that for $31 of risk. Okay, basically. And I could even put in 70 to see if it pops up and hits 70. Does everybody understand that? If you're okay with $32, you could do $31.25. Okay. Now, anytime I place a binary option, I immediately go and put in a profit target. In this case, I would set one at 15. And let me bring up that chart so you'll see visually what I've done. And in case you didn't notice, this is demo. It's got a green header up here. Some people don't notice that. Now, I'm expecting the market to go down. That is my expectation. And that means I want to sell high and buy low. Okay? So I sold at, what was it, 68.25 or 68.75. So I sold high and I need to buy low because I have to buy it back. I sold it and now I have to buy it back. That means that I need to come under what I entered at. So I have set one at 15. 15 is less than 68.75. Everybody understand that? I know a lot of traders actually will go in at 68.75 not realizing what they're doing. They set a target at 85 and they're short. Well, it immediately exits the market. Why? Because you set a profit target higher and it's always going to fill it. Well, most of the time anyway. All right, let's go back and let's look at the USD Swiss franc. And there's no trades right now. You are overextended right at this bottom range of the London opening. You also have a congestion dot up here. Still, you know, I'm not really interested in this trade. Let's go back to the Aussie. The Aussie, we need a retracement. Do you see how the stochastics is actually overextended right now? You see it's overextended, it's above 80. You know, this is where I want it to retrace to give me an entry, okay? So I'm not interested in that one at the moment. Same scenario on the euro dollar. You are overextended here. I would still be anticipating a retracement on that, and I would not want to go in until that retracement comes in. On the euro yen, again, you're seeing that you're overextended here. This is when it's best to wait for that retracement. Of course, you see that you had two entries over here on the 60-minute chart. Again, you would need to be using let me check to see what time that was. That was at 4 o'clock. So you needed to go out at least to 7 o'clock. This one occurred at 11, excuse me, 11 o'clock last night. You would have to go out to 3 o'clock. This is one that it's telling you to buy off of the 15-minute. You would buy. Now, this would be a 2-hour binary option. I'm not seeing any type of volume divergence here. Instead, the sellers were getting stronger and stronger. Not one I would want to actually go long on. And you would also be going against your 60-minute chart. That's usually not a good idea unless there is something that's backing that trade up. Does everybody understand that? Now, I'm just going to flip over and show you the NASDAQ again real quick. Okay, do you see how they had that volume divergence here? Okay, do you see how price moved up? That's what we would anticipate when we have volume divergence, okay? Not only did you have volume divergence, you also had hidden divergence because price was making lower lows on the stochastics, but in price, it made higher lows. Do y'all see that? Good morning, Dinesh. Again, both of these combined actually said that it was going to go up. I would anticipate it to take this out. If it doesn't, then this trend is in trouble. Does everybody understand that? Any questions on that this morning? Let's go see what the British pound dollar is doing. It's not doing much of nothing right now. And you can kind of see here, this set the mode for the day. Okay, this is your high range, this is your low range. And do you see how it really has not been able to break out of this area? This is a good market to stay clear of. No, we're not expecting any market reports today, but the market is moving really slow too. So now we just have to wait for something to set up. Right now there's no setups. Now, this is the one that I kind of use all of the time. And it's very simple. You have your ranges on here, you have the trend, you have the stochastics. You can see that you're overextended. You know, this is typically what I'm looking at when I'm trading. And then I just go back and say, okay, am I going into a higher time frame? Does everybody understand that? And again, you know, having these, well, you're going into your next higher time frame, Dinesh. If you're trading a 3, well, Again, let's go back to the NASDAQ because it's doing a little bit better this morning. All right, if you went in here, okay, do you see how it made this bar down? And you can see here, you just made a magenta peak on the 12-minute. It tells you right here, 12-minute chart. So if I click over on the 12-minute and I actually add the ADX on there, you can visually see you're starting to make a magenta peak. Okay, if you were in that trade, you know, now is a good time to come out of it because now you're going against your higher time frame because you're long and the higher time frame says, hey, we're going to have a retracement. You're overextended on your stochastics. You have a magenta peak coming in. This is probably going to go down to this ATR. So this long that you took here is at this bar is when it came in. You're now going against your higher time frame, the 12-minute. Do you understand that? So if you were in it on the future side, you better get out because that's going to be a big stop to run. Okay. I don't like using big stops. I like using small stops. Okay, on the British pound, it now tells you you're close enough to the ATR to take a trade. This is usually when I start looking at the volume, but I need another blue volume bar to actually read that one. On the Aussie, I'm not really keen on taking this one because of the ADX being at 70. And this one, and there are times I take a trade off of this congestion dot. But in this case, your price is at 97.23 and you have an ATR below you at 97.10. If this ATR stops it, then you're going to have an issue. Do you understand that? In order to get a low risk on that, you would have to go down to 97.11, which is right at the ATR. Not the best trade setup. In other words, right where you're entering your binary option, there's going to be an area that may resist price. That's not a good idea. I don't want anything in the way when I take a trade, and that ATR is in the way. Does everybody understand that? So we're just going to wait until we have something to trade, because right now there's not really anything to trade. The only one that we're in right now is the USD JPY at 11 a.m. expiration. So that's on a daily. It was off of the 60-minute. And we were a little bit late on that one, but the USD JPY, Dinesh? No, we're short. You know, is this long going into your 60-minute? It came back to the ATR and it did it on the Virgin volume. Is this long position going into this short? No, I'm not taking it. Now, if you're trading one time frame, you could take it. And this may be one of the areas where it flips this ATR. And the blue ATR will come up here. So let's say that it closes here, okay? And then it comes back to test that ATR and then comes down. You could make money. It's feasible. I see it all the time. But I am not going in to my 60-minute. I'm not trading it. The U.S. CAD is not my favorite by any stretch of the imagination. 3465. You have to go down to 3449. It only has $27 of risk. I don't like the volume on this one. Let me change my screen again. So this is the USDJPY, and this is the US CAD. So you're out at 34.49. Again, I always set a profit target because I may get distracted and I'm not keeping up with what it's doing. I might be looking at another trade or something and not looking at this one. So I've already set a profit target. If it goes down to 15 on the buy side, then it will automatically fill me. And this one actually has nice hidden divergence on the 15-minute. So from, well, I thought I had it on there. Yeah. Well, for some reason, it's not letting me draw. Oh, the wrong one. I have to change my screens. Okay, so from this high to this high, you're making lower highs. Okay. On the stochastics, you're making higher highs, and this is a reversal bar. Okay. And this is something I'm actually going over tomorrow in the Nadex educational room. I'll go into more detail on it. But this is hidden divergence, and with this reversal bar, which is still forming, it should actually go down and take out this low at 34.56. Now our binary is at 34.49. The only reason that this may work out in our favor is because this is going into this downtrend over here. And we're not overextended over here yet. In other words, this stochastics is not below 20. So it has a chance to work in your favor. Does everybody understand that? It doesn't mean it will. The market will do whatever the market wants to do when the market wants to do it. We have had a really significant move on the indices overnight. We've had about a 100-point move almost. Probably around 90 points. That's pretty significant for the Dow. And I'll just go show you that screen. This was the opening over in the UK. And you can see we've had a very significant move on it. Okay. And that's, you know, this is unusual. We don't normally have that big of a move nowadays. But it may actually mean that we're going to have a really good day on the indices, or it's really not going to move. We'll just have to wait and see. Okay, I'm going to go grab something to drink and I'll be back. I just wanted to go over this because I was thinking about doing a spread on the Dow. And what I would like to see is for this to retrace back down to this ATR. And then I might consider the 29.25 spread for the market opening. In multi-charts, Dinesh, it's not designed to show the top and the bottom. It's actually the average. And on this one, by waiting for it to come back to 918, you'll actually get that spread a little bit cheaper. That's the only reason. Does everybody in the room understand spreads? If you don't ask, then I don't know that you don't know. You are getting some divergence on that Dow as it touched that congestion dot. The buyers decreased. And this is where I just want it to come back to here. It just gives me a lower risk option, or spread, I should say. For the Dow 3-minute entry, you look at the 12-minute higher time frame compliance. You can, it just depends on what my risk is. You can see right now that's just, I mean, the trend is up. Even if you go over to the 45-minute, your trend is up. And, you know, I've seen this stochastics where it stayed above the overbought area just with these small retracements. But again, I'm just looking for this to retrace to see if I can get a lower risk. You know, the risk right now is only $14 on that spread. If it moves up, then you have the potential of making 1 to 3 times what your risk is. I don't think they're going to lower it below 939 from the looks of it. No, it's 938 now, which means there's $14, $13 of risk on it at the moment. You know, you have a $13 risk and a potential for $87. You know, you're going into a trend. Now it's down to $12. I would prefer that the volume was not increasing on the downside. Just trying to see if I could get it for maybe 35. I think 12 is going to be the lowest. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that one. And this is just if the market goes up, okay, then you have the potential of making money, okay? It's really that simple. And basically, if you were to draw this out, this was your entry point. Your risk is limited, and I got to change that so that I know it's one of the spread lines. This is the point where you really start making money on the spread. And your risk is limited by this line. I'll do dark red. And we all know anything can happen at the market opening. And this just gives us a way to trade the market opening. Really, you're just going into what the trend has been. Could it go down? Yeah, it could go down. The U.S. market opening will do whatever it wants to do. For $12, I'm not going to worry about it too much. I think it was $13 actually. No, I was right. It was 12. Here's another one over on the USD Swiss franc. You're at an ATR and you could take a long position on that. But number one, this is the USD Swiss franc, which moves slower than any other market. And you would have to go out probably until 11, maybe 3 p.m. for that one. Right up above you, you have the ATR on the 60-minute. I'm really not liking that one. When I don't like something, in other words, the trade's not perfect, my second thing that I look at is risk. And on this one, it's got $15 of risk. Now, if that does move up, okay, you stand to make a lot of money on that trade. Oop, wrong one. And that was the 11 a.m. for those of you that were following it. Again, I set a $85 target. The entry was $15.50. So if you make 85, you know, you've made money. That's what we consider a high gamma trade. And again, the 60-minute does have trend divergence here. With 3 minutes left, you can also see that even though sellers came in, they're not as strong as what they were over here. It could move in your direction. It's 19 pips, you know, at a market opening. Could it do that? Yeah, it could. In that case, the risk is low enough that I'm okay with it. Over on the Dow, you can see that the volume is decreasing on these lows. You know, now this is pre-market, you know, before the U.S. opens, and the U.S. can come in and change that in a heartbeat. But again, this is where you're looking at risk to reward ratios, you know, more than anything else. That's what you're looking at. I do have 3 screens that I'm working off of, so you see me changing the screens a lot. Oh, sorry, Dinesh. I did go ahead and enter that one. The only thing I don't like is this volume bar over here, but overall the trend is down. You can see that on the ADX and you can see it on the stochastics too. I went ahead and entered the 1224 area with $28 of risk. So basically, I have to remember which trading platform I'm in. Basically, this is your strike. And it was $28 of risk on it. Went ahead and set a profit target at 15. You know, I do the same thing on all of my trades. Now, sometimes, and yesterday was a great example. I was in a trade yesterday and the profit target wasn't filled, and I was convinced that it was going to expire in the money. So I just let it expire and I took off my profit target, because those are the kind that they will fill within the last minute. And I figured, well, it's worth collecting the extra $15 in premium. And that doesn't happen very often. It's once in a while that will happen. Over on the Dow, I don't like this particular volume bar because it closed under zero, which means the sellers controlled it if you're just looking at volume. But when you look up, the price bar does not confirm that. No, it was not the 11 a.m. It was the 10 a.m. The 11 a.m. you would have to go out 3 strikes, which I'm not willing to do. Generally, I'm only going to go out 2 strikes. That bar I actually like for it to be at 9:12 in the morning, because they made a low but buyers stepped in. You know, you can't say much more than that. The one thing I'm also seeing on the binaries, in order to get the risk that I want. On a binary on the Dow right now, I'd have to go out 3 strikes. Again, not something I'm willing to do. And that's for the 11 a.m. And this is where, I'll sit and watch it. If it goes to an acceptable risk to me, then I'll enter. But we've had such slow markets lately, going out 3 strikes. It's wishful thinking. Okay, I'm going to take a break because right now there's really nothing moving. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens at the market opening. Hi, Marv. We've been looking in so many markets this morning. I'm not sure how I would be able to recap. I am recording it so you can go back and watch it. But we've looked at all of the markets so far. And I'm using a combination of multi-charts and NinjaTrader this morning. I'm actually liking NinjaTrader 8, Charles. I'm not having trouble running the market analyzers at all. And I'm getting used to the tabs. That's the best I can say. Yeah, it does kind of keep me focused though, because I just go between the tabs. It's kind of cool. Yeah, the memory usage has definitely improved. So, I mean, I'm running multi-charts and NinjaTrader and the webinar room, and I'm not having any issues. And before, I would have already crashed. So it's not bad at all. It's adjusting. You know, the one thing, and me and my programmer talked about this, you can't resize the columns very good. Individually, it just kind of screws up your market analyzer if you try to. But, I mean, if that's the biggest complaint I have, I'm doing pretty good. Well, they spiked it down this morning. Let's see what they're going to do. The market analyzer is actually telling you that it's at the 45-minute ATR. I do not have this update intrabar, but if I did, you would see that there was a magenta peak. Now, I will say that's the one thing that they have not improved on, Charles, is the update intrabar. I can see it on the ADX, which is why it's important to know where that peak comes in at. And it comes in when this, excuse me, when this low is taken out. Yeah, and Gingy snores a lot. You can hear her. Even when I do videos, you can actually hear her snoring if you listen real close. Sometimes you don't even have to listen close. Yeah, she's a trip. I'm telling you. There she is. I think they were all snoring this morning. We've been having a lot of storms at night, so they're not sleeping very much at night because they're scared of storms. What I What are your thoughts on averaging the trading binaries? Say it is going against you big time. Would you add more positions? No. Would you hedge? Yeah, and I showed you how to hedge in the last video that I did, Dinesh. Now, would I hedge this morning with this market? No, because I don't think you really have a direction right now. You know, you're at the ATR on the 45-minute. Will that change? I don't know. Remember, we were only risking $12 on this Dow spread, okay? If you went in and took a binary at 889, it's got like $25 of risk on it. That would make up for whatever you lost on the spread side. Does it look like it's really going to get there? It's struggling this morning, so. And I mean, that's the biggest issue on all of them. You've got a very slow moving market, you know. The USD JPY is still sitting at that ATR on the 15-minute chart. It's not been able to break it, even though sellers have come in, they can't break that ATR. You know, it happens. We had 5 trades risking, I think it was under $110. So it does not take much to recoup that. This blue line is the opening of the London session. And I think they're going to reject it, but that's just an opinion at the moment. You know, the euro, I showed you the 60-minute volume on that. That's why I didn't like that trade. You were going into a short when buyers were stepping in on a 60-minute. I've seen it work, but not all the time. You know, when you're looking at this volume, the volume should have been going up. Well, it should have been going down because it's a directional volume indicator. It's not, okay? And that tells you that there may be trouble here, okay? You do have to wait on this bar to form because you should not read the volume divergence into that forms an inside bar or it closes above the high of that bar. And you're seeing why. This is why I tell y'all to read the reversal bar patterns. We're seeing the same thing over here. The sellers are decreasing, okay? That's reading intra-bar. You still need the next bar to confirm that, or this closes up here at the top. And that's divergence regardless of, you know, what you're trading, whether it's the stochastics or the volume. If you're using divergence, you really have to rely on the reversal bars to say, hey, at this point, I can read the divergence. And that is correct, Dave. And I don't have crude set up this morning. So crude and gold I don't have set up on Ninja yet. That's okay. It's no big deal. Now you see that this is forming that reversal bar. You see that buyers are coming in. But again, you know, you need to read that at the end of the bar if it closes up. If it closes down, it doesn't make a difference. You just don't look at it. That's the easy way to put it. Don't look at it. It tells you it was profit taken and not true buyers coming into the market. But this is where I am going over and looking at the 45-minute to see, okay, are they breaking the ATR? They did that yesterday morning, okay? Same thing over here. Look at your 45-minute. Same thing over here. Look at your 45-minute. Are they breaking the ATR? And that simply means that the ATR will flip from blue to red. I'm not really sure that it does, Rick. I would have expected a sell-off yesterday because it's intrabar. Dinesh, I would have expected a big move yesterday when it happened in the currencies. And it's almost like, oh, just another terrorist attack. Because really, even the British pound, it moved down, but not dramatically. In which that kind of tells me maybe as on general, we're getting used to terrorist attacks, which is a sad thing to say, but it almost seems that way. I think I need to rename my tabs because I get confused. Let's see. That way I know which one I'm looking at. Has to be in my face. Yeah, if I don't do this, I'll think I'm looking at a 30-minute and be looking at a 12-minute. Dinesh, you were asking me about hedging. Normally when I hedge, for example, this moved down, it moves back to the ATR, then I can take a position. But in this case, it just moves down. I'm not looking at gold. There's your volume divergence. Do you see how you form that 3-bar reversal? This was the lowest bar. This closed above the high of that bar. That's really what you want to see to read the volume divergence. On this one, the inside bar was enough to do it. This one, the same thing. In other words, the moment that you see the gray bar is completed, you can actually read for the volume divergence. I'm sorry, Dave. I did 56.97 on the NASDAQ for about $26 of risk. I'm not seeing a lot of buyers come in there. We'll see what it does. The NASDAQ is actually moving better than the Dow or the ES and actually gave you the signal to go in. I would like to see the sellers step in on this bar. We'll have to wait and see. Now, I'm reading this early on both the Dow and the ES, but you can see you're making lower highs, higher highs in the stochastics. You did the same thing over on the NASDAQ. It was just sort of a cleaner chart. Hi, Andrew. How are you doing? I've been sending out emails, so they may have been put in your spam folder. Yeah, because generally I send out at least one email a week, sometimes 2 or 3 or 5, or just varies. Yeah, I think the dogs do have the best idea today, and that's just sleep through it. She's really sleeping good this morning. She's making me sleepy. Sellers did come in on that bar. It was confirmed by the price bar itself. This is where you're expecting it now to move down. Let's see if it will. It looks like the NASDAQ is marching to its own little beat this morning. The one issue you're going to have on the NASDAQ now is the ATR is in the way. Because the ATR is here and the strike is here. Well, let's see if enough sellers come into the market to push it down. Just like when it flipped this ATR to blue, it had to come back and test that ATR. The same thing is happening now. So you had a blue ATR, it turned red, and typically it will come back and test this to make sure there's resistance to push price down. This is what messes up good trades. The price is trying to find an area that's either going to support it or is going to resist it. And this is where your trades get into trouble. And this will happen regardless of whether you're trading in the money, at the money, or out of the money. I just choose to use out of the money because it allows me to reap a higher reward than at the money or in the money. With this price bar should make a new low. That's what you would anticipate. And the one important thing here, we were expecting a new low. Now you know that price is not doing what you anticipate. Using out of the money binaries, a lot of times by the time you see that, your risk is so low on entry, there's nothing left to exit for. It might cover the cost of the trade, maybe. And that is it for today. The market is not moving. We had entries. They did not do what we thought they would do. And that's the way it goes sometimes. Don't really have a choice sometimes on these. Are there any questions this morning? I've got to do a screenshot real quick. I'm going to try, Marty. It's going to be hard because we're supposed to have a lot of rain today. All right. If there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the session and actually go take a nap. I hope everyone